Here's an example comparison with a common time period, common historical period. This often involves common style characteristics, even between items of different media. So for this example, we're going to compare the little Monet clay cat that we've already used in a couple other comparisons, and a work by the pianist and composer Claude Debussy. So this comparison is going to use a common time period, that of the 1860s through the 1880s, when we're talking about the style period of Impressionism. This time period finds writers, artists, and musicians all trying to capture the same general aims. That is, to give us the impression of our senses. In fact, the word impressionism was first used for visual art as a sort of derogatory term. Oh, these painters, they're just painting impressions of things. They're not actually painting things, objects. This sort of looks like a boat, this sort of looks like water lilies, but it's not very accurate. The Impressionist painters were the first ones to start us off. They were interested in showing the reflection of light off of objects. And so a little tiny clay cat, such as this one, shows us not exactly the cat itself. It gives us the impression of a cat. Yeah, if I glance at it quickly, that's what I remember about this cat. So the Impressionist visual artists were fond of light reflecting off of things. We think of Impressionist art perhaps as being full of pastel colors. That's because a lot of times they were working outside, capturing images with natural light falling on them, and light reflecting off of the water, off of the clouds in the sky, shadow and light and darkness, all of these things that aren't artificially reproduced. At the same time, or a little bit after, musicians thought that this might be a style that they'd like to imitate. But with music, we're not necessarily trying to show the impressions of light. Instead, we're going to use a different sense. We're going to show the impressions of sound. Well, what are musicians trying to show us impressions of with their sound? Well, things that aren't definite. They're not trying to show us forms like sonata form that go somewhere and are organized. They're not trying to show us necessarily a story or a timeline. This is the hero and this is what happens to the hero and that's how it all gets resolved. That's not what they're really after. They're trying to show us the impression of a moment. Better yet, the impression of a moment that might not actually have happened, like a memory or a dream. Claude Debussy is perhaps the go-to composer when it comes for Impressionist music. He's the one we think of first and foremost, but he's not the only one.